Hello, my name's Nancy Turner. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning Enhancement here at the University of Saskatchewan, and it's my great pleasure to give you a very brief history of what has brought the University of Saskatchewan to the point that we're at in piloting BLUE, which is the Student Experience of Teaching and Learning questionnaire that we're going to be piloting this fall. It is something that is delivered by a company called Explorance. Just want to start by noting that this entire process has been overseen by TLARC, which is the Teaching, Learning and Academic Resources Committee of Council, and particularly by a working group of that Committee of Council that's really been advising and directing this work for the past many years. So the process that we have gone through to get us to where we are today really started back in 2014-15, when TLARC was taking some time to look at our policy around student evaluation of teaching. That work really allowed us to examine the questionnaire that we currently have as our kind of enterprise or institution-wide supported tool. There is variance in terms of the tools that are used across campus, but there's one called the SLEQ that is used and supported centrally across the institution. So we, through the work that we were doing looking at policy, realized that we needed to examine SLEQ and whether it was appropriate and a good fit for the institution. The anecdotal evidence we were getting was that it wasn't a great fit. Instead of diving in directly to looking at the tool itself and finding a replacement, instead we took a step back and decided to look at what, as a university, we meant by and communicated about teaching quality. So we started a project that was led by Chelsea Wilness, who's a faculty member in the Edwards School of Business, and myself. And collaboratively, with TLARC overseeing, we undertook a review of all of the documentation across the institution in which we talk about teaching quality. So we looked here at foundational documents, we looked at the Learning Charter, we looked at tenure and review criteria at the institution as well as at the college level. And we took all of this information and we analyzed it and came up with an idea of what, as an institution, we felt teaching quality was. We then mapped that against how we evaluate teaching quality currently, and particularly against the SLEQ tool. And what we found was there was a misalignment. What we said teaching quality was to us was not how we were evaluating teaching quality. That led us to develop a visual representation of that, what we meant by teaching quality as an institution. And this we're calling the Teaching Quality Framework. Still in draft, but is really intended to communicate visually how we conceive of teaching quality, and particularly to encourage expansion of our understanding of teaching quality. A lot of what we talk about and focus on in teaching quality and our evaluation of it is on the delivery quadrant. What happens in an exchange between a student and a teacher in a classroom or in another learning environment. And what we wanted to do was expand our idea and the way that we were conceiving that to consider how we design those experiences, how we set up those learning environments, how we evaluate teaching, and then reflect on that and integrate with scholarship back into our next cycle of designing, delivery, and evaluation. So conceiving of teaching quality as something broader, as well as something that's iterative and developmental. And so that's what the Teaching Quality Framework is helping us to do. After development of that, after that work and the development of the Teaching Quality Framework, we then stepped back to the student evaluation of teaching particularly. We did a literature review, looked at best practice internationally, and we used that alongside the work that we'd done on the Teaching Quality Framework, and we came up with a set of principles that we wanted to use for selection of a new questionnaire and system. I'm not going to hit on all of these principles now, but just to highlight a couple of them. One really fundamental one is that we wanted a questionnaire that was underpinned by the ethos of students telling us about their experience, rather than students telling us how satisfied they were. And this was a really important and fundamental shift for us. So we've actually started calling the whole overarching system the Student Experience of Teaching and Learning Questionnaire, rather than just Student Evaluation of Teaching. And again, that language is a fundamental shift for us. We also wanted the system and the questionnaire to be modular and flexible, and to allow for some variation to represent and allow for it to fit local context, because we know those vary across the institution. So we wanted something that would allow us to have some consistency with an institutional set of questions, but that would also allow colleges and departments to select their own questions to fit their local disciplinary and local teaching approaches. We also wanted it to be customizable so that instructors could select their own questions as well and be the only ones to receive the feedback from students on those questions. So very much to have a formative feel, something that teachers could use for their own development of practice rather than only as evidence of their teaching practice for tenure and review, for example. So those were all very important aspects and principles on which we wanted to use to select the new questionnaire and system. On the system side, we wanted something that was easy to use, something that had a more kind of rich and robust reporting structure. We wanted it to be efficient and automated in more ways than our current system is, to minimize the administrative burden of running the overall system. And we also wanted students to be able to fill it in on any kind of device that they had, so mobile compatible. We took all of those principles and we went back to the options that we had available to us. We ended up identifying 6 systems and 5 different question sets from across the world, Canada, the United States, and Australia particularly, and we evaluated each of these against our principles. From that process, we did quite an extensive look at other institutions across the country using these tools and what their experience was, and we came as a TLARC working group to the decision that Blue was actually the best fit for us. It matched most closely with all of the principles that we had identified. So we invited explorants to come in and present to us about Blue, and that happened in May of 2017. The individuals from explorants came in and presented Blue to many different stakeholder groups. We got feedback from those stakeholder groups. We also spoke to other institutions that were using this particular system and got some feedback from them. And then as a working group, took all of that feedback and made the ultimate decision that we wanted to pilot Blue this fall across the institution. And so that's what we have progressed to do. This pilot is going to be happening with 5 different schools and departments across the institution, and will be a really key point for us to ensure that the system and the tool do meet our needs and match with those principles that we've set out. We will be this fall as well taking all of this information back to TLARC as well as to University Council, and hoping that we can have robust discussion and then ultimately approval of Blue as the institutional teaching evaluation tool. So that's what's brought us to where we are today. Thanks very much for listening.